Hi, my name is Jessup Yeaman, and I'll be discussing class number 9, the Junior College Market Lambs. We thought that was a relatively good class in terms of quality and had some challenges for sure in terms of the way that you sort it. But one thing that we thought probably came to the forefront most easily was a top pair of sheep that probably provide more total good pieces and really need to kind of rise to the top, and that's the 2 lamb and the 3 lamb. We thought there were some trade-offs between that pair, but overall 2 is a sheep that I think handles really fresh and expressive. He's really big down his top. He's really powerful in terms of his rear leg. He's one that's got some width off both ends of his skeleton when he's in the stanchion. It is acceptable in terms of his build and his balance. Set that one in motion. Maybe don't love him as much as some that are in the class. Maybe one that's a little tighter and a little more restricted than the sheep that comes second behind him. But he's acceptable in terms of his feet and legs and how they function. He keeps his top line together relatively well. And again, he's got a big advantage in terms of muscularity and stoutness and how ready to go he is in terms of handle quality. We thought he doesn't ultimately deserve to sort up in that initial pair. 3, on the other hand, was a really interesting sheep. I think one that probably didn't set very well in terms of the way he handled in the stanchion. One that's a little plainer in terms of his touch and handle quality as compared to our class winner. But one that when you set him in motion does shine to a degree. I think that one's probably the most attractive in terms of his hip and hind leg posture. I think that one handles his top line really well when you set him in motion, and in my eyes I think a sheep that's pretty high quality in terms of his general build and design, and then can back that up with some power and some mass when you get your hands on him. Again, not quite as fresh, he's not as expressive, he's not as big topped as our class winner, but he does kind of offset him, and then he's probably a little more flexible in terms of his skeleton, a little better built, and a little more correct in terms of his chest floor to flank relationship today. From there, we thought that the 3 sheep still just had more good to him than the 4 sheep. We thought the 4 sheep was one that had some pieces, relatively fresh in terms of his rack. I think that sheep's got some mass and some muscularity that he shows off, at least when you set him in motion. From there, I think though that one still has some pieces that cause issue for us. He's one that wants to be a little narrower in his pin set. He wants to be a little washed out over his loin edge. Sheep that really wants to become jammed up in terms of his front 1/3 and not handle the front portion of his skeleton quite the way that we'd like him to. Maybe gets a little off in terms of his skeletal quality and his design as compared to the high quality 3 sheep above him in class. Obviously, we need to round out the class with the 1 lamb. I thought the lamb on the left side of the stanchion had some interesting things about him. He's not a complete throwaway. The sheep has a big stand-up rack. He's really good in terms of his hide quality. From there, though, I think this is the one that's off just a little bit in terms of his overall build and design and the quality that he presents with. The sheep's pretty plain over his loin edge, and then you set him in motion, and I think this one just kind of comes apart in terms of his top line. Don't like the way that he blends his neck into his shoulder and his shoulder into his spine from there back. Also wants to get a little off in the way he carries his hip and his hind leg. I think that one just reads as the sheep that's the most off quality. Probably needs an extra shot of power as well, especially in terms of his loin and his rear leg. His hind saddle in general needs to be a bit more powerful. Again, that one just kind of rounds out the class there and becomes a sheep that just needs to fall into that bottom position. Our placing on that class was 2, 3, 4, 1.